Welcome back to another episode of Four Down Territory. My name is Mars. Alongside me, as always, is Sam. We are in the 2025 season where no one would predict it, but Drake Maye is currently leading the race for the MVP title. Who would have thought the second-year quarterback is flying this far into the season, Sam? Certainly not me.
It's got to feel good for you being so high on him coming out of the draft and seeing him turn into this player this early as well. I feel like we kind of saw him as that guy that was obviously, had some issues in college, but would come out and hopefully be this stud player. And we're already seeing it in his second year. It's awesome to see, especially with an offense that doesn't have a huge amount of pieces around him. We're talking about a second-round rookie running back, Stephon Diggs being your big wide receiver signing, which is not really big compared to some of the other guys around the league. So it's great to see him. He's really blossoming into a top 5 quarterback right in front of our eyes.
Completely agree. He's definitely getting into that conversation. Even I'm surprised with how well he's doing. Like you said, I was high on him coming out of the draft, but I didn't expect him to hit the ground running this quickly. But look at the Patriots, absolutely flying. Before we go into the game, Sam, stat of the week again. You absolutely hit a home run this week, so I've had to up my game, but I'll let you go first with your stat of the week for week 11.
Mine's quite a funny one because I was supposed to bring it up last week and I didn't, but it's still going to work for me because I want to talk about the Texans-Jags game. In the second quarter, Woody Marks had a 1-yard rushing touchdown, and that is significant because that was the 11th play this season that the Texans have run within the opposing 2-yard line, but only the first one that's gone for a touchdown. So up to that point, they had 10 plays that they did not score on. Inside the 2-yard line. And the thing that's even funnier, their 12th play inside the 2-yard line came later in the game, and that was a false start, which is very, very Texans.
It certainly is. I mean, you look at the Broncos game that they played, it was quite noticeable when we were watching it how there was multiple attempts within goal-to-go situations where they couldn't get the ball across the line. It was quite surprising how poor they were within that, down and distance. It's about time they scored, though, with the Woody Marks touchdown from that range. But, the Texans still have concerns in the red zone. Something definitely to keep an eye on, especially with CJ Stroud out now. Has Davis Mills turned the corner for them is the big question going forward for the Houston Texans. I want to talk about Matthew Stafford, Sam. Matthew Stafford obviously got the win with the Rams against the 49ers to push the Rams to 7-2. But this is the first time in Matthew Stafford's career that he has reached 0.5 or 500 in his win percentage since the first snap he took in the NFL. He is now 115 for 115 and one tie.
Wow. So a career win percentage. Sorry, he's finally hit that
career
point
win percentage. Correct.
Where he's like caught up for all those losing seasons in Detroit. That's nice. And I tell you what, that's another guy who's absolutely flying, isn't he? He might be having his best season ever right now. And at age, what is he? Late 30s now, isn't he? And we saw at the start of the season this back injury. We're worried about whether he's even going to be able to finish out the season, whether we'd see him retire before the season even started. And now here he is, one of those top MVP candidates, and he's got the Rams absolutely flying.
They are playing at a level that I didn't even expect. I mean, you look at that NFC West, they are all challenging for the title. Big win this week for the Rams against the 49ers, but the Seahawks are also flying. As for Matthew Stafford, you look at his career and what you mentioned, you look at the start. I think his first season, he won 2 games, and then obviously going through, he went 2 games, 3 games, then 10 games. But it's only taken him till, drafted in 2009. So however many seasons in to his career, this is the first. He has the chance this week to go over 500 for the first time, which is wild to say that it's taken him this long.
And I really hope that they don't hold it against him when it comes to those Hall of Fame position.
It easily could do.
They're going to look at his win record as a career starter and say that he's barely over 500, but we knew he was always putting in work to get wins when it mattered. Even those games in Detroit where they're getting battered and he's still putting up unbelievable stats just because he is that good. He just never had the team around him.
Right, Sam, we need to talk about some news before we move on to the actual games from Week 10. The New York Giants have fired Brian Daboll as their head coach. Thoughts on this, Sam? Is it too soon? Should they have given him the full year? Or is it the right decision to move on from him?
I would have been open to giving him the full year on account of the fact that I don't really feel like firing him does anything for them right now. It's mid-season. They're not making the playoffs. They're what, a 2-win team at the moment, I think, aren't they? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they may as well have just see out the year and go from there. Maybe just give him the benefit of a full season, but I do think that whether it was done now or done at the end of the season, in that respect, it just doesn't matter. I think he had to go. The team wasn't where it needed to be, and it's interesting though that they've said that while Dayball's gone, they won't be getting rid of. Is it Joe? What's his name? GM Joe Show. I want to say Joe
Yeah,
Schoen.
yeah.
I can't remember how
Yeah, I
it's
think it's Joe
pronounced,
Schoen or something like that.
but
Yeah.
you know who I mean. Yeah.
The one that
Who?
made all
Yeah.
those
So
awful
they said it's not
decisions.
full scale. Exactly. Yeah, he's keeping his job, and they still hold him in high regard, I think, is the exact words they said. So interested to see that the direction they go from there.
It's weird. I almost feel like this is Joe Schoen's decision to fire Brian Daboll, considering the amount of
Yeah.
disagreement they had in regards to player selections on who they're going to keep, who they're signing on contracts. If you go back and look at the decisions made, the GM obviously decided to say, right, we're going to re-sign Daniel Jones, and there's camera footage of Brian Daboll not being happy with that. He's the one that decides to get rid of Saquon Barkley. Joe Schoen wanted Roma Dunze over Malik Neighbors. Obviously, they ended up going Malik Neighbors. Joe Schoen didn't want Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart was a pick from Brian Daboll. So there's a lot of disagreement that's already happened between these two. So, it wasn't, they probably didn't leave on the friendliest of terms, I think is probably the best way to put it. But it kind of puts the Giants in a weird situation now where, like you said, we're 10 weeks into the season. There's not long left. There's no chance they're going to make the playoffs at this rate. They have a quarterback that's had 4 concussion tests already this season, being the rookie Jackson Dart, which is quite impressive to say. Jackson Dart, like we said, is a Brian Daboll player. I feel really sorry for Jackson Dart because the NFL has a quarterback developmental problem where if you look at Jackson Dart, first round quarterback, head coach fired. Cam Ward, first round quarterback, head coach fired. Caleb Williams, first round quarterback, head coach fired. Same for Drake Maye, same for Bryce Young, same for Trevor Lawrence. This list goes on. But in ways, I think this is the right decision for every single scenario of each one of those quarterbacks because of how bad the head coach was in place for them. Brian Daboll, obviously, his game management was terrible. Brian Callahan, again, terrible game management. Matt Eberflus, just awful head coach and probably terrible defensive coordinator at the same time, as we can see in Dallas. Gerard Mayo, obviously, there was rumors coming out that he basically just wanted to be a player more than a head coach. Frank Reich, atrocious clock management, well known for that. And then Urban Meyer, I'll stop there. That's as much we need to say about Urban Meyer.
Yeah, where did you start with that one?
But it shows that I don't actually think there's an NFL quarterback developmental problem. It's actually there's just a coaching problem. They don't know how to coach these young quarterbacks, and they're landing in these scenarios going into year 2.
Yeah, it's giving them a good situation that they just seem to struggle with. It does make you think whether teams bringing in a first-round quarterback should look to set up with that new coach, GM, whatever sort of front office ready for the new quarterback, so they can just start a scheme top to bottom fresh. But I think in the Giants' regard, it's definitely the right decision, and it's exciting to see who they might go with going forward. There's obviously there's big candidates, the sleeper candidates, as always. I always enjoy the coaching carousel and seeing who gets suggested because they always end up, it's never it's almost never who you think it's going to be. But I like seeing the names that come up. So like obviously with it being the Giants, Bill Belichick's name's been put into conversation.
Around,
he was asked in his press conference. Yeah, and they were asking him, and in classic fashion, what does he say? I'm focused on Wake Forest. Of course he does, because it's Bill Belichick, and he doesn't want to talk about anything outside of his team. But whether they'll be able to pull him from NC, I don't know. But the one that I'm excited for, and we know I'm excited for it, if John Gruden makes an NFL return, and we get to see more Gruden Dart content, because we like that QB school video was sensational. It was a great watch.
Very good.
And if we get to see that on a week-to-week basis throughout the season. I think that would be funny. Whether I think it's a good move or not, I'm ignoring. I just think as a pair, them two are just funny as hell. They have great chemistry, if we're honest. So it'd be interesting to see where they go with that one.
I think it'd be a great move as long as Gruden's emails stay to himself rather than getting shared throughout the NFL. So, we'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
But, let's talk about who is favourite and who's most likely to get this new head coaching job. Obviously, the name that's been thrown around a lot is Lane Kiffin, head coach of Ole Miss. I'd love to see him have a shot in the NFL. I think that'd be really cool. My favourite, a coach that we've been quite high on this podcast, Clint Kubiak, absolutely flying as the Seahawks offensive coordinator. We loved his passing game that he was able to implement in New Orleans. Obviously, it didn't turn out the way, mainly due to the quarterback play there. There's hundreds of coordinators that could have their shot at this. Cliff Kingsbury being one, Brian Flores, defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, obviously, is he going to get another shot at being a head coach? Vance Joseph, there's so many up there. Obviously, you mentioned John Gruden, Sam. Is there any other defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators that you think deserve the shot?
I mean, there's always. I think it's funny because we always bring up your Vance Josephs, your Brian Flores, your Steve Spagnuolo as the ones that come every time there's a head coach, because they are the coordinators that we expect to take the head coaching leap. And adding to that, we've got like Jesse Minter from the Chargers, Todd Monken from the Ravens always gets brought up as well. So there's always options, but I feel like those are the main candidates. I think Lane Kiffin is the one that obviously he seems to be the odds-on favourite, doesn't he, because of that Ole Miss connection with Jackson Dart. And he was obviously tied to an NFL step up, and this seems to be the dream scenario for them both. And for one, I'm just really excited to see how Lane Kiffin's system will transition from college to the NFL, because they talk about his system being an easy, scheme people open, easy quarterback-friendly system in college. Whether that could work at the NFL level, I don't know, but I'd be really interested to see if it does, whether we could see him in that kind of obviously, I'm not making the comparison, but the way we talk about Kyle Shanahan making it so easy for his quarterbacks, where he'll scheme up these plays for wide open receivers, yards after catch, and stuff like that. It's exactly what Kiffin does with Ole Miss. So if he's able to bring that to the Giants, and you think about people like Cam Scatterbo run after the catch, Neighbors run after the catch, these are the guys that are great in space. Theo Johnson, even, like, if we're being real. So it might open up this Giants offense, give Dart, a really nice year too if they do go with Lane Kiffin in that direction.
I think a player that would really suit that as well is Wan'Dale Robinson. I'd love to see him in that offense. I think he's fantastic after the catch as well when he's in open space. But yeah, I would love to see Lane Kiffin in the NFL, especially in this scenario. If there's any step up, this is the right one for him. We need to talk about Brian Daboll, though. What's next for him? Obviously, there's been screenshots on Twitter shared of the 2017 Alabama team when he's talking to Tua Tagovailoa as his, I believe, passing game coordinator or offense coordinator. I can't remember which one he was at the time. There could be a link up with him going to Miami, or with Mike McDaniel's career in jeopardy, or should I say head coaching role in jeopardy, should I say. And then also there's obviously Buffalo. Joe Brady could easily get a head coaching job this season. Could he return as the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, Sam?
Yeah, I think out of those two scenarios, I would see the Bills being more likely. I think Joe Brady's been ready for a head coaching role for a while now, and I almost question whether he's having the same sort of perspective as Steve Spagnuolo, where he's saying, hey, I'm already on a really good team. Why would I want to go elsewhere just to be a head coach? I think some people have that head coaching aspiration where they want to go elsewhere and they want to go start as a head coach. And you look at people like Ben Johnson, who had this fantastic gig in Detroit, where he's now wanting to put all that behind to go start as a head coach on his own. And you can respect it. And I wonder whether Joe Brady, which side of the coin he's on, and whether he wants to start that head coaching progression. And if he does, I think Daboll coming back to take that spot in Buffalo would make sense. On the flip side, what was the other one you said?
The Alabama connection to Tua Tagovailoa.
That's right.
Could he return, or could he link up with him again?
I think if I'm Miami, I would be a bit skeptical of bringing Daboll in as a head coach, because realistically, where's the success as a head coach? Exactly. If we're being honest, we're talking about one playoff season where, riding the coattails of a as of an above par Daniel Jones and a sensational Saquon Barkley to take them into the playoffs and get them a wild card win. And let's be, we'll give Daboll his flowers for that season. I think the Giants were very good that season, and they definitely overachieved though, and we saw that because as the years went on, the record got lower and lower and lower. It felt like. I'd be a bit worried about offering him another head coaching gig. I'm not entirely sure he's really played himself into or coached himself into a big head coaching role anytime soon.
Absolutely. It makes sense for him to go to a coordinator this time, but we'll see what's upcoming for Brian Daboll in this offseason. We'll dive into Week 10 games, Sam. I think I definitely have a curse with primetime games. I really do. Every time I stay up, it is an absolute stinker. The Broncos defense shines in a 10-7 squeaker against the Las Vegas Raiders. 10-7. My goodness. Bo Nix was well off target this game. It really wasn't pretty for the Denver Broncos here. Scraping at a win in primetime at home as well. Just really wasn't a good performance for them. The Raiders defense actually stood their ground quite well. It's just that offense wasn't able to convert on any downs, is what it seems.
Yeah, this was a boring. I hate saying boring because sometimes it's nice seeing defenses be dominant. That is the problem, isn't it? When you see the stats of how many punts, 3 and out, stuff like that, it was not a good game for a neutral fan to watch. That's for sure. All it did really, Mars, is it got me thinking. The Broncos are winning these games. It's not pretty, but they're winning these games. They're sat at 8-2. Obviously now, tied for the lead in the playoff picture. I believe they're the 2nd seed now, aren't they? So, my worry is that this is a team that screams of one and done in the playoffs. I hate to say it. I think the defense is a Super Bowl defense. If we're going to be for real, I think on a team. If this Broncos team went and won the Super Bowl, we'd look at that defense and say, yeah, absolutely. But my worry is that the offense is not getting it done at the moment, and I worry that as soon as they come up against a very strong offensive team, I'd be worried. I think all you have to do is go back a couple of weeks to the Dallas game, and that's where you can see, they held Dallas to 24 points, which is respectable, and we're talking about garbage time points there as well to make it 24. And that's a good performance from that Denver defense, and being able to put up 44 on the other side to just never have the game in doubt. But these last 2 weeks with the Texans and Raiders, that's where I'm a little bit skeptical as they're going into in these big games. We're talking about the Chiefs this week, huge mark to be set for Denver right now. This would be their biggest test of the season.
Yeah,
are they legit? Can they? Leading the AFC West, can they hold on to the AFC West for the rest of the season?
I think the biggest thing for this Denver Broncos team is that if they're going to have any success in the playoffs, they must ensure at least a home game. When this team is at home, they're a completely different side when traveling away. It will make the world of difference in regards to conditioning. Obviously, we know the extent of Mile High, but this team screams the 2015 Broncos to me. It's exactly what I've watched many times before, where the offense is terrible. They fail to put up 20 points in games, but the defense continues to carry them through games. I've witnessed that the last 2 weeks. It's clear that this is a very similar team. It's just the AFC now is a lot stronger than what it was back in 2015. You're coming up against, MVP caliber quarterbacks week in, week out, be it that being Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. You could even throw Joe Burrow and Drake Maye in that conversation now with how good these quarterbacks are in the AFC. So it's something to take into consideration that things have changed. I completely agree, though. The Broncos need to change something fast if they are to secure this, division title, home field advantage, especially when coming up against the Chiefs this week. Big loss being Alex Singleton. Awful news hearing what's happened with him. I hope everything is going well in that regard, but that's going to be a big hole for the defense. Well, he is the commander. He's the one that wears the green dot, gets everyone organized. So that's going to be a big loss for the team. There's offense is still shaky. Hopefully Marvin Mims is back this week. That would be a real good addition just to try and take the top off the defense. That's something we'd like to see. But the Broncos definitely need to change something this week to get the win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Berlin, Sam. Let's talk about Berlin. Wow, it was an exciting one. I have to say, any game that goes to overtime in Europe has always been a good game. The Colts win 31-25 against the Falcons. Jonathan Taylor, MVP, has to be said.
It does. And I feel great about the fact that last episode I said Taylor is still the MVP, and he comes out 244 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. I think this is his 3rd hat trick of the year, I want to say. He's been absolutely flying. You look at his numbers when compared to the big running backs of the past, looking at AP's MVP year. At this point in the season, AP had 7 touchdowns from scrimmage, and Jonathan Taylor has 17. If we look at LaDainian Tomlinson as well, in terms of, I think it was scrimmage yardage, Taylor's blown him out the water there as well. So he's on pace for massive, massive numbers. I think there's no doubt. I think I will be shocked if he's not a 2,000-yard rusher by the end of the season. I just feel like it's going to happen. But, big games for the Colts coming. I think it's fair to say that, the Falcons really put the pressure on in this game. I think the Colts really had to come back from that performance against the Steelers last week, and I would have liked them to have been a bit more dominant in this game. But we can understand the Falcons' defense; it is a good defense. But I think if there's one thing to take away, I think there's some of the nice plays that the Colts were making on defense. Not really letting the Falcons stay consistent with momentum, and we saw in the fourth quarter, the Colts were able to get the job done and then take it into overtime where they were just, they got the ball back and walked it down the field, didn't they?
They did. They certainly did. I think what was really big for, what I said last week in regards to the Jonathan Taylor MVP, he's run for it, is that he's had a fantastic offensive line. But you look at his longest touchdown in the game, there was no help from the offensive line there. There was great penetration from the Falcons defensive line. He was able to shrug off the tackle, bounce to the outside and run, 82 yards or something ridiculous like that. I mean, it just shows that the caliber of season that he's having. So I'm now fully on board with the Jonathan Taylor MVP run in. That'd be really good to see. But we need to talk about the Colts schedule for the rest of the season, like you said, because their easy road is finished. Now it gets challenging. Luckily, they've got the bye, but then you've got the Chiefs, Texans, Jags, Seahawks, Niners, and to finish off, Jags, Texans. Wow, that is a tough run-in with 4 AFC South games there. Like we said, they've already played the Titans twice. They got the easy ones out of the way. This is probably one of the hardest run-ins. It won't get spoken about a lot because obviously the Chiefs and the Jags and Texans are having, scrappy seasons, I think is the best way to put it. But divisional matchups that will mean the world to both teams, or all 3 teams, that being the Colts, Texans, and Jags. So it'll be interesting to see how it finishes.
Yeah, 7 games to go, and 5 of them, and I'm looking at those, the pair of Texans and Jags, and then the Niners game. 5 games against teams that are very inconsistent this year. We don't know what we're really getting for them. I think the Colts could very easily go 5-0 in these games, but they could very easily drop 3 or 4 of them, and then really derail their playoff hopes and getting home advantages. And if they can keep the 1 seed and they can keep it in Indy, it's phenomenal for them because it's going to make such a difference. And we obviously it's the same for every team. It makes a difference for home advantage all the time, but the Colts have really come out of nowhere this year, and taking home advantage into the playoffs would be huge for them. And I think the good news is that with the Texans or the Jags and the Niners specifically, I think they're teams that have kind of struggled against the run at some points in this season. We've seen them allow big rushes. We saw Kyron Williams do fantastic against the Niners this week. Willie Marks, like I said, having the touchdown against the Jags this week. So it's interesting to see how Taylor will match up in these ones. I think against the Chiefs not this week, next week, that's going to be a good one. That's going to be a really good to see where they can find the space against such a good front 7.
It's weird because I should really be supporting the Colts to win this one. That being obviously the Chiefs challenging the Broncos for the AFC West, but with the Colts challenging schedule, it's almost like I should want the Chiefs to win just to smack that AFC wide open. But it'll be a really interesting one to watch, that one. I hope it's in prime time, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Let's move on though to what's turning out to be the comeback kid. Caleb Williams gets another comeback win, 4 in a row for the Bears. They're now 6-3 on the season. They've just beat the Giants 24-20. This Bears team is currently sat 6th in the NFC playoff picture. Who would have thought that at the start of this season, considering how strong their division is?
It doesn't feel like they're 6-3, does it?
No.
I'm really struggling to picture where all these wins are coming from. It really feels like I'm watching Red Zone and I'm thinking that the Bears don't look that great here. And I think maybe it reflects on the fact that we're seeing a lot of tight games. We talked about earlier in the season the back-to-back 25-24 wins. And then obviously the close one with the Bengals last week, which was a wild ride for them, and then obviously the Giants this week. So they have been close games, and that's the thing. I think that's where they're just winning these one-score games, and it's one of those things. Every year we get that graphic. Here's where one-score games flips, how it affects the standings, and we'll probably see the Bears way down the bottom somewhere because they've just managed to win these one-score games. But this is another example of them just pulling through in the fourth quarter, and on the flip side, another example of the Giants throwing away a game in the fourth quarter, where I think this is their fourth game on the road where they've had like a double-digit lead and thrown it away. So the writing was on the wall for Daboll. And the Bears, on the other hand, it's nice to see Caleb making those plays that he was so, iconic for in college. Yeah. He just looks like the fastest player in the league when he's scrambling around. I don't know what it is, but when he's trying to escape to the sideline, he just looks so quick, and he makes some unbelievable throws on the run as well, whether they're completed or not. And I think the one thing, his accuracy hurts a lot of the time, but I do love watching him zip the ball about the field, even if the throws are wildly inaccurate. The excitement factor that you get from watching him play is unbelievable.
It's the arm talent. He has phenomenal arm talent. It's why everyone was so high on him coming out of college. And like you said, his ability to make the play on the fly, rolling out the pocket and laser one 40, 50 yards down the field. That's why Caleb Williams was the number 1 overall pick. It's why teams wanted to trade up with the Bears to try and get that pick. It's, he was the guy coming out of college. So it's about time we saw something from him. The Bears are 6-3, we've mentioned, but the reason for that is they have had a very easy schedule. They're in very similar boat to the Indianapolis Colts, where now it's crunch time. They have to go and beat some real tough teams to finish out their season. Next two, probably two of their easier ones for the season, that being the Vikings away and the Steelers at home. Two still tough games, but they're probably the easiest ones to come. Then you go Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, Niners, Lions. That is one hell of a finish for this team. And you're looking at this playoff picture and you think, I could see this team falling out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a really tough run in an NFC that is just so stacked. It's so top heavy, it feels like. I wouldn't be surprised to see them either fall to like the 8th or 9th seed in the dying weeks, or it will be that the teams below them will drop off enough that they'll be able to sneak in at that 7 spot. I think I could see them taking the 7 seed. When you look at the teams on the outside looking in currently, we're talking about the Niners, Panthers, Vikings. They'll drop games as well. So I think if there's one good news for the Bears, it's that they're not looking at the teams below. Whereas you look at the AFC and your teams that are only going to win games. I think the 8 seed beyond in the NFC, I can see them dropping some games, so that the Bears can afford to lose a few games here and there and still be able to be in a shout with that 7 seed.
Bills slip up against the Dolphins. I don't think there's much to talk about on this game, but it almost just feels like the Bills are slightly overlooking teams, Sam. You look at the way I went back and watched this game. Obviously, we watched Sunday together, but the Bills just didn't look the same team that I've watched many times this season. Look back to that fourth quarter against the Ravens. I hate to bring it up, but they're a completely different side to what they were in this game. Dolphins started to turn it on, though. You've got to give them credit. 3-7. It almost just seems that, too little too late for them to really start their playoff push. They are currently 12th in the AFC, so a big push needed for them to make playoffs. Ravens, Sam, back to winning ways well and truly. 4-5, beating the 4-5 Minnesota Vikings 27-19. A really tough start for the Ravens is what it felt like. A lot of field goals, but once the third quarter came, it was about time the touchdown came, and the Ravens started to see out the game.
Yeah, it looked like one of those classic Vikings games where the defense was just going to keep the score low. And that's exactly what they did. They forced field goals, made it tough. Tyler Loop was doing fantastic. I mean, I think he only missed one on the day, and that was the really long, I think, what was it, 50 plus. Yeah. But, outside of that, 4 field goals from him was very much needed. Offensively, I don't think we were that bad. I think, again, like I say, I think the defense was, the Vikings defense was just on top form as always. You look at the offense of the Vikings, JJ McCarthy really was the one giving the game to the Ravens. The turnovers were pretty poor. You could see the thing is you could see what he was seeing in the one-on-one to Jefferson, and the one where he threw it up to Jefferson for, I think it was Jefferson, wasn't it, in double coverage. You could see what he was trying to go for. I think it shows that rookie. Well, I mean, I still
he's a rookie.
He's a rookie. What his first season was. Yeah. It shows that rookie inexperience where he is just not taking what the defense gives him yet, and he's wanting to hit that home run ball. It maybe, he's seeing the scoreboard and he's saying, we're behind, let's go make a play. But we're talking about 3rd and short, where the option was either throw it into double coverage. I think it was, I can't remember which play it was. I think it was the double coverage play. It was either that or take on Roquan one-on-one in open field. And I'm sorry, JJ McCarthy, you are winning that matchup against Roquan. You need to know when to use his legs and just pick up a first down. Even if it's a 5-6 yard gain, at least you're moving the chains rather than, throwing up a prayer and basically an arm punt at that point. So hopefully we'll see some development from him, because, it was a gutsy win against Detroit last week, but I just felt like we didn't see the same version of him this week against the Ravens.
I think we certainly saw the 9 alter ego come out at the start of the game. It's just he slowly turned back into JJ McCarthy towards the end of it. Things came back to reality at that point. But you could certainly see some inconsistencies with his game. What he does very well is forcing the ball outside. I think he did a phenomenal job with that. It's just those deep intermediate balls across the middle is where I want to see improvement from JJ McCarthy. Browns Jets, Sam, you couldn't pay me to talk about this. I think obviously the big thing was that Breece Hall, despite driving around the locker room in a go-kart all week, actually was driving a go-kart on the field. He was phenomenal for them. And a sneaky piece for fantasy owners going into the season.
Yeah, and it is worth, talking about. It's huge from him to have that the past week he's had where he's seeing these studs around him getting traded, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to leave New York. He wanted to go join a different team, and seeing that offer coming from the Chiefs, he's probably in the back of his mind thinking, oh my God, I could have been playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, and here I am instead on the New York Jets, who are only just getting their 2nd win of the season. But to go out and have, a fantastic game, 21 carries, 83 yards, and then the 42-yard receiving touchdown to go with it. I think it shows it's a big test of character for him. It's a massive respect to him on that one. And on the flip side with the Browns, I thought it was quite funny to see Dylan Gabriel get nominated for Rookie of the Week after his performance. I don't know who's box score watching, but they obviously weren't watching the game, because he put up some decent stats, and that's why I mentioned the box score watching, because when you see it, you're seeing like over 200 total yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's not bad, but some of these missed throws, man, it literally led to people saying that he might have been throwing the game on purpose to get the Browns a better draft pick. And when that's happening, something's really going wrong.
It's really dodgy. I think you've got to start to look at when is Shedeur Sanders actually going to get a shot in this team. It's crazy to say that.
It's a joke at this point.
Yeah. I'm starting to get... I'd like to see him have a go. If they're really just tanking for a better pick, you're losing against the Jets. The Jets now jump up 2 spaces in the AFC just from a win against you. You've got like we've said many times in this podcast, one of the best defenses we've ever watched. Developing rookies so well in that side of the ball, but we need to see something more on offense. It was nice to see Jerry Jeudy this week, but there's nothing to jump out of your seat for. The Cleveland Browns will forever be that franchise that you just watch in despair. The New England Patriots had a phenomenal game in Tampa. Drake Maye's MVP campaign is well and truly on. 28-23 against the Bucks. Really thought the Bucks were going to win this one. Baker had a great game, throwing 3 touchdowns. It just wasn't enough to get the win. Drake Maye and Trevion Henderson as well. Wow, rookie performance from him. Really, really good all round for the Patriots.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how when you give Trevion Henderson the ball, good things happen. It's almost like when they gave him the ball at Ohio State, he was always just taking 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-yard touchdowns, it felt like, didn't it? I can't believe it's taken to week 10 for Henderson. All that was required was for Stevenson to get injured and the RB room to be completely, worn out, so that Henderson could get his carries. Even saying that 14 carries on a day, it's not like he really got like a lion's share of the carries, but he definitely produced with them. He was phenomenal. He had the breakaway runs, 2 long touchdowns. And that was, that's huge for this Patriots offense. On the flip side, in the RB rooms, it was funny to see. I obviously recently talked about how the Patriots defense have stopped 50 yards, any opposing running backs from getting over 50 yards. That streak has been broken this week with Sean Tucker. Can you believe it? Which is wild to say that out of all of the people they've been up against, talking about Bijan, Devon Achane, players of this caliber, and Sean Tucker is the man getting 53 yards against the Patriots and breaking that streak.
It is pretty crazy just how long that record has actually stood for. It gives credit to Mike Vrabel with what he's done with that defense, because there's not the biggest names that are lining up there. You've got Divine Diablo being your key piece of that defense, and Christian Gonzalez has missed plenty of time, and they've been able to limit the run game still. They've just done a phenomenal job. So this Patriots team is doing extremely well. They have been exceeding expectations, and it's nice to see that, a lot of criticism at the start of the year was how easy the schedule was. They've beaten the 2 hardest teams they've faced already. You look at the Buffalo Bills, they won 23-20. They've played the Buccaneers 28-23. You now look at the rest of the season, it's looking very favorable for them. Their only real challenge being the Bills and the Ravens to finish out the season. So we're looking at a team that could just lose 4 games this season.
I think while it may not be a challenging game on account of the fact that I imagine they'll just outscore them, I think the Bengals in Cincy is a good one on account of the fact that we could see Joe Burrow back at that point.
Yeah, true.
And I'm very excited to see how this Patriots defense can defend against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, and Chase Brown. But like I say, I think this Patriots offense is still putting up points. Drake Maye is playing phenomenal, so I imagine that they will be able to outscore the Bengals in that respect, on account of the Bengals defense being a lot worse than the Patriots defenses.
Absolutely, yeah, too right. Let's move on to the Saints beating the Panthers. The Panthers are the most unpredictable team in the NFL.
Any given Sunday.
How do you go and beat the Packers and then lose to the Saints? Tyler Shuck gets his first career win. Took him 2 games compared to Spencer Rattler's 11, was it? I think it was, or something.
It was
drastic
something like
number.
That. Yeah, it was a long streak.
It wasn't the most memorable performance from Shuck, I must admit. I think he did shine at some points. His connection with Chris Olave was very good. If you can continue that, it'd be really exciting to see. But Bryce Young, serious inconsistencies for this Panthers team.
Yeah, I think what we saw from Shuck was some good efficiency. He 19-27 is nice to see. You go on the flip side, and Bryce Young, while he has the similar completion percentage, we're talking about 5 less average yards per completion. So it shows big difference in these 2 quarterbacks. Bryce Young, like we say, the inconsistency is what is holding him back. It's like one week he's a all-pro candidate, next week he could be cut for roster space. He's really just not. You can't work out what side of him he wants to show us. And this week, Rico Dowdle didn't really explode in the way we've seen the last few weeks. Held to 53 yards rushing, which is one of his lower totals since being a starter. So I'm surprised with the way this game. Obviously, no one was expecting the game to go like this, especially after the Panthers winning against the Packers last week, and with the way the Saints have been this year. But again, it just shows you've got to be ready to play every single Sunday. It doesn't matter what team you come against. An NFL team is still an NFL team, no matter how bad they are. They will show up on any given Sunday. So
the two
got a wake-up call there.
The two supposed locks this week, that being the Bills to beat the Dolphins and the Panthers to beat the Saints, both didn't hit. So whoever took, plus the Saints and plus Dolphins did a very good job in their rackers this week. The Texans scrape out a last-second win against the Jaguars, 26 points in the fourth quarter. Davis Dimes Mills, what a player he is. How can you let Davis Mills put up 26 points against you in the fourth quarter? What are we doing, Jaguars?
I can't believe the crumble we saw from the fourth. Like you said, 26 fourth quarter points. The Jags were in control early. They were forcing turnovers. They were putting up points. This looked like this could have been an absolute runaway game in Houston, where we were going to see the fans leaving at the start of the third quarter, and those that stayed were rewarded with a late comeback win. And even when the most exciting point of the game for me was the Texans giving the Jags time to get into field goal range for Cam Little to break his own record he'd literally just set a week earlier. And that was what I was saying when we were watching it, wasn't it? It's like he's just hit a 68-yarder last week. We're going to go and see him hit that 70-yarder this week and break his own record a week later. And then, unfortunately, the Jags could not even get the ball anywhere near field goal range with an atrocious drive on all fronts. I think they had the penalty, didn't they, that negated a big play, I want to say, and then obviously the sack leading to the fumble recovery taken in by Sheldon Rankins for the big man touchdown. This Jags team I can't work out. We've now just found out today that Travis Hunter is confirmed out for the season, will require surgery. So sat at 5-4, the Texans sat at 4-5. I think these two are going to be in a great little battle here where we see only one of them's getting in the playoffs. I think there's only space for one of them, if at all, to be honest. But this is going to be the big fight. I think they've played each other twice now, haven't they?
Yeah,
because
they're 1-1.
So they're 1-1 against each other. They've now both got to play the Colts twice. That's the game. That's the game that's going to really sort it out for them. I think
it's whoever can nick a game off the Colts out of them two. Really,
yeah.
The only favourable thing for the Jags is that they get to play the Titans one more time compared to the Texans. The Texans have obviously played the Titans, got the win. The Jaguars still got to play them twice. So that'd be exciting to see what they can do there. But like you said, I just have no faith in this Jags team being able to see out a game after that. You are, far and away clear of winning this game, and you've just capitulated in the most crucial time. We were sat there watching that final drive, and we were literally figuring out what yard line they need to get to break the record. We were that confident that they'd get down there and at least give Cam Little a shot. I mean, it really did look like they were going to do it. What was it, like a 15-yard game to put them into Texans territory and then take them back for a illegal use of the hands to the face. So, it kind of sums up the inconsistency of the Jags, and it doesn't look like anything's going to change for them in the near future. So, it's going to be a tough run in for the playoffs. I could easily see them sneaking in as the 7th seed, that being the Texans as well. But it'll be, look at the percentages, 40% for the Jags to make it, 31% for the Texans. So it'll be really interesting to see who grabs that final spot. Seahawks beat the Cardinals 44-22, convincing win for them. I mean, they got off to a firing start, really, didn't they? What was it like? It was like 33-0 or 38 points first half, like crazy.
Yeah, 38-7 at the half. You're thinking, wow, these Seahawks are on fire. I can't believe it. But the second half, 15-6 to the Cardinals. That something happened in the second half. They were having turnovers. Darnold ended up with a pick. I think he had 2 fumbles he lost as well. It's worrying because the game was out of hand. It's easy to say it didn't matter, but I think in the grand scheme of things, these things do matter. We'd like to see the Seahawks see out these games where they can just stay dominant, stay on top, because they, like we said, came out the gates firing and they were phenomenal. And the Seahawks, to a lot of people in the league, around the league right now, are the best team in football. But I don't love the way they finished out this game. I would like to see them be more clinical as the game runs down and seeing out this one. I think Sam Darnold, he only had to throw 12 passes, which is, sort of when you look at the numbers the Seahawks have, it's a surprise that they put up 44 points, but it's because of that defense, as always. 2 defensive touchdowns, I think it was in the end. And Nick Emenwari is still leading the team in tackles. God, it's a beautiful sight to see. After the hype he had coming into the draft after his combine performance, I was really worried he was going to be one of those combine legends that put up these crazy numbers and never, transitioned into the league well enough. But it's good to see him balling at the heart of that Seahawks defense, and the rest of the players around him are all playing phenomenal. This Seahawks team, a Seattle 1 seed and getting to take home advantage throughout the playoffs. I'm looking forward to seeing some Seattle home playoff games, because Legion of Boom era Seattle playoff games were a great watch. So hopefully they can get the same atmosphere cooking this year.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see. I was just quickly trying to find Defensive Rookie of the Year odds to see if anything changes, but no, Nick Emenwari still third behind Carson Schwarzenegger and Abdul Carter. So it would be really cool to see that happen. Obviously, we were so high on Nick Emenwari coming out of college, but yeah, definitely the heart and soul of that defense, which is really good to see. Staying with the NFC West, Rams beat the Niners in San Francisco. Massive win for the Rams to really put the pressure on the Seahawks. This is lining up to be one hell of a run-in for this division title. I don't know when they actually play each other. Is it next week? It is next week. Their first game against each other in LA, which is going to be a good watch. And then towards the end of the season, we get the return leg, which would be really good to see. My money is still on the Seahawks to do it. If I was to bet on anyone, I think, like you said, they are the more complete team. But this Rams offense is so exciting to watch. I'm really enjoying. I've always liked a Sean McVay offense, but this one is really special.
I love the way they're sharing the ball out. We're talking about another game where we've got 8 different players with a reception, 9. 9 with different targets. The fact that they're so willing to pass the ball around, it's not just a Puka Nacua shot. You've got literally one of the best receivers in football. You've got one of the best wide receiver 2s in football, who is a wide receiver 1, and they're still very willing to just pass it to these tight ends. They're bringing out these 3 tight end formations where they can, force the defenses to bring in heavier, base packages, where they're then able to use the motions to get a nice matchup that they want and get the receivers on someone that they want to, win these one-on-ones. And it's been so effective. McVay's an absolute genius. There's no other way to say it. The way he schemes up an offense is just so impressive to see. And the Rams right now are probably my favorites coming out of the NFC, I have to say. I think as much as I love the Seahawks defense, I'm just all in on this Rams offense. And seeing Matt Stafford in another Super Bowl would bring me so much joy, I've got to say.
Cool. It'd be really cool. The Rams literally have my favourite player in the NFL being Poona Ford, so I should really give them more credit for what they have. The Detroit Lions comfortably beat the Commanders 44-22 with no Jaden Daniels. This Commanders team is really looking into next year already. I don't know what the extent of the elbow injury is and how long he's going to be out for. I saw... yeah,
it's not that bad apparently.
Is it not bad? Okay.
Potential to return after the bye, I think.
Is this your attempt
to me?
Is this your attempt for me to trade for him in fantasy? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I was surprised because, like I said, you're right. I was thinking about how I could maybe trade Jaden Daniels going forward in my league, and I'm seeing it say to me that he could be back after the bye. I'm surprised. I was thinking he was done for the season. They're saying as soon as week 13. It's unbelievable.
That's impressive considering the extent of the injury. I'd be very shocked if they, even if they push him back, I'd be surprised. But we've seen too many injuries from a Washington quarterback to, you look at Theismann, you look at RG3, you look at Alex Smith. Let's just not repeat history. Let's keep him healthy and let him have a long career in the NFL. That's what I'd like to see. We'll go to Sunday night football. Oh, go on. You want to touch on that?
Could we stay on the Lions quick? Just because I want to just mention that, Dan Campbell taking over offensive play calling duties this week. How about that? I thought that I didn't think he had it in him personally. And I think it's awesome for a guy that is just labeled as the culture guy. And something that we've mentioned multiple times this podcast throughout different head coaches is the whole if you're a culture guy as a head coach and the culture's gone, then what are you? And it's nice to see that Dan Campbell was here to say, hey, I'll call the offense. I don't care. I'll do a better job than you will, John Morton. And he did. They looked phenomenal this week. They shared the ball out, got the ball to their playmakers. And now Detroit, I mean, I've just said the Rams are my favorite coming out of the NFC, but I'm looking at Detroit and I'm saying, they got tests on the run-in that is going to be really exciting to see. The Eagles is their next game. They've got the Packers still to play. They've got to go to LA to play the Rams. Big test for them as the season closes out. And those are games that are going to dictate whether they can push for the 1 seed. Sat at 6-3, they're a game behind the 1 seed, I believe, which is the Eagles 7-2. Or is that's 2 games behind technically, isn't it? Right? Because
the Eagles have not. Well, they're both. They're 1 game behind.
1 game behind. Yeah. Yeah, but there you go. Like 1 game behind the Eagles, then go and beat them and completely flip that. And then you've got the Packers and Rams to do the exact same with. Man, I think the Lions have it in their own hands right now. It's same as last year, which is exactly what they want. They just want to win out, be dominant, take themselves into the playoffs. And that they've got a bad taste in their mouths after the way that last season ended. Dan Campbell taking over play calling duties could be the spark that they need to send them into the playoffs as the 1 seed.
I think the big thing from Dan Campbell is 7 yards a carry. If they can average that every single game, they are absolutely flying. Jahmyr Gibbs had a fantastic game. I love the way they got Jameson Williams involved in the passing game. One critique though from Dan Campbell: maybe don't get as excited when you've called a good play and start fist pumping before the play's even happened. It might give something away to the other team when you've called a good play and you're really happy with it. Let's just refrain until after the play's finished. That's probably the only thing you can say. Unless it's guaranteed
setting up for later in the season. No, I'm saying he did that this time so that now he's going to do it throughout the season when they're like running inside zone or something like that. Just to really make defensive coordinators like, oh my god, he's planned something big, and then it's just power with David Monty or something like that.
True that. Let's move on to Sunday Night Football, Sam. The Chargers beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 25-10. Really poor game from Aaron Rodgers, I think, is the headline from this. It was a sloppy first half for both teams, is what it felt like. Nothing really went on, but the Chargers just grew into the game, and I think that was the big thing there. And the Steelers just struggled. You look at that crowd; it is basically a Steelers home game. You listen to the replays of the game; it's so loud when the Chargers are on the ball, but you watch it. The Chargers weren't the ones struggling on offense; it was the Steelers. So it just I have concerns for this Steelers team if they can hold on to this playoff spot. They're 5-4 now. They're there's 1 game splitting the Ravens and the Steelers for this AFC North title. They've done, they've just crumbled towards the end here. They had such a lead on the Ravens, and the Ravens have fought their way back.
Yeah, 3 losses in 4 games for the Steelers has really shifted the tide in the AFC North. Like you said, I think this was probably Rodgers' worst game this year. Just looked inaccurate, which is so unlike him. And they just couldn't really get anything else going anywhere on offense. The Chargers are one of those teams now where I feel like I keep saying that I'm not convinced by them, but they are sat at 7-3. They've put themselves in a really nice position at this point in the season where they can see it out the end of the year. If you look at the rest of their schedule, Jags and Raiders being their next 2 games, nice. They could take themselves to 9-3. But then we're looking at the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, Broncos to finish the season. Not easy for them. So I don't think the Cowboys will be in contention for the AFC West. I think it's between the Broncos and Chiefs. Despite where the records are now, I don't really see them being involved in that top spot unless the Broncos and Chiefs were to drop lots of games. But I think the Chargers should be able to get themselves into the playoffs. I don't know what seed they'll get themselves in at, but they could quite easily set themselves up for a nice playoff push if they can win some of these big games.
I think you're certainly looking at 2 AFC West teams making a wild card spot, and then the final one going to whoever doesn't win the AFC East. I think that's a completely reasonable scenario there. I think we'll see the true identity of this Chargers team in that 5-game stretch to end the season. You could see them winning their next 2 against the Jags Raiders, but let's really see what they're all about when they have to go, play the Eagles, and then the next week go away to the Chiefs. That's where you'll really show what type of team you are. Finally, we finish off with Monday Night Football. I repeat that I am a curse to all primetime games. I stayed up. I watched the first quarter.
Oh, no.
It was 0-0, and I went, I'm going to bed. There's no point. And also, for the listeners, I played Sam in fantasy this week. It was riding on Romeo Dobbs. He went one catch for 5 yards, and I lost.
Oh,
Criminal.
my goodness.
Criminal.
And the best thing is, best thing is that in my other league, I also was against Romeo Dobbs and Brandon McManus, and I had Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith pulled me through. I couldn't believe it. I was 2 games where I went to bed and I'm looking at my win percent chance and I'm thinking, oh, great, another 2 losses. Fantasy season's going down the drain, and I wake up, just couldn't believe it. I genuinely, that woke me up in the morning. I tell you what, seeing Romeo Dobbs' stat line and being like, oh my gosh, I could not believe I'm actually going to win this.
Because I watched the first quarter and I saw there was, Romeo Dobbs dropped 2 passes already, and I was like, he's getting targets. That's the main thing. And I kind of went to bed comfortable. I was like, I'm going to beat Sam. That's the main thing. Wake up to see 1 catch, 5 yards. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I only need 1 catch for like 30 yards to beat you. And, and when I saw it was 1 catch, 5 yards, I was like, for goodness sake, you can't write it.
Yeah, it was 3 points, wasn't it? I think you need 3.2 points.
I was like, you can't write this. That just sums up my season. But I'm looking at this Green Bay team, and I don't know where to point the blame, because one, Jordan Love was terrible. There was no inconsistencies. He was bouncing in the pocket a lot. There was too many times where he was skipping reads when players were wide open. But okay, he was putting the ball in difficult positions for receivers to make the plays. But it's crunch time. You're playing against an NFC team that are also challenging for this NFC title. You need to make those tough catches. Christian Watson had a drop that was so crucial. Romeo Dobbs 3 drops. What was it? Bo Melton had 2 drops. Dontavion Wicks had like 3 drops or something like that. There's too many. I think Jordan Love went from, I think he was like mid-table in drops. I think he's now towards the top just from 1 game. You can say that, but he still does not deserve any credit because he was also terrible this game as well. So, things need to change for the Packers. Also, play calling. You can't keep calling inside zone on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 to try and win a game. That's going to get figured out at some point, and it clearly did for the Eagles.
It was what's his name? Ajamo, is it? Moro Ajamo, yeah.
Yes.
Who was sat there shouting inside zone this way, and then Philly D-line just breaks through, and then that was the big play of the game, wasn't it? I'll tell you what was a bigger play of the game, which I couldn't believe. Why the hell is Nick Sirianni going for it on 4th and 6 in midfield when literally all the Packers, like, granted, his excuse was that they wanted to end the game there. Okay, great. Love the mentality. Do it when it's 4th and 3 and less, maybe even 4th and 4. 4th and 6 to then throw up a one-on-one go ball. I hate it because all the Packers had to do was make like 20-something yards and they were in field goal range. I think they were lucky in the respect that McManus, wasn't healthy coming into this game. I think he was struggling with a quad injury, I think it was.
Yeah, he missed a few games earlier on in the season.
And it was evident because the kick... Yeah, exactly. And then the game-winning kick they had was a total mess. But I think they were quite lucky. I think they could have quite easily seen the Packers get a big chunk play, get themselves into a closer range, and then take this thing to overtime, and then he would have looked really silly.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen that scenario too many times from Brandon McManus where he has a long kick to tie the game and just shank it. I can go back to literally the 2015 Broncos season where he did it against the Bengals. You look at, I think it was Russell Wilson's first game where he had the long field goal and failed to make it. Obviously, that probably went down to head coaching decisions to actually go for it there. But this is the exact same scenario. And you could already see that, in what happened in this game, Brandon McManus had a chance, or he had like a little warm-up kick, didn't he? And it was short. And you still think, well, we're still going to go for it after that? Come on. Like, let's be real. Is he really going to make any difference by going for it a second time? I just don't like the decision-making there. So yeah, but the Packers, we've spoken about team schedules going through the rest of the season. Packers are again a team that have a really tough end. Giants, obviously, easy game to go into next, but you can't say anything with the way they've been playing these last two games. Vikings, Lions, Bears, Broncos, Bears, Ravens, Vikings is a really tough finish for them. I had Packers as a Super Bowl pick. They're now the 7th seed in the NFC. This is a completely different team as what we saw at the start of the season.
Yeah, the dominant week 1 performance against Detroit is in the past now. It feels like I think Green Bay are not showing up as often as we need them to really consider them as a Super Bowl contender. I think that's my issue. We're talking about back-to-back losses now, in which they've just looked really poor, and they should hopefully get back on track coming up against the Giants and Vikings. But like you said, some tough games down the stretch. It's going to be interesting to see how they finish up the season. They've got to stop dropping these games, like dropping easy games. Be more consistent, finish strong and get themselves into the playoffs. Otherwise, they'll find themselves as one of the lower seeds going and playing. We're talking about a 7 seed could potentially, if the playoffs started today, the 7 seed, which is the Packers, would have to be going into Seattle to play the Seahawks. We don't like that. And the second seed could be any of the Seahawks, Eagles, or Lions this year. The Rams, even. The 7 seed is probably going out of the playoffs. If we're being quite honest, the second seed is going to be a tough team, and whoever comes in at 7 is going to have a tough matchup. So the Packers need to do what they can to avoid that.
Absolutely, they really do. I can't believe it, Sam, but we forgot to do predictions last week, and I only realised that after we finished recording. So we need to make amends and do our predictions for Week 11. Let's start with Thursday Night Football, Sam. Jets versus the Patriots in Foxborough. I think we both know who we're taking here. This will be the New England Patriots for both of us.
Yes.
Do we need to say anything more? I don't think so. The Santiago Bernabeu hosts its first ever NFL game. The Commanders versus the Dolphins, Sam. Both 3-7 teams. What a treat the Spaniards have. What are you taking here, Sam?
This annoys me. After the game they had last week, I really want to pick the Dolphins here, and I think I will. I don't think the Commanders are a bad team, and I think Mariota's not done a bad job since coming in. But give me the Dolphins. I can't believe I'm saying it. I feel like I've flipped now after all the slander at the start of the season. I'm slowly turning into a Dolphins backer.
I'll continue the slander. I'm still taking the Commanders here. I will refuse to pick the Dolphins in that regard. Panthers versus the Falcons, Sam, divisional matchup. Who are you taking?
I'm going to go with the Falcons at home. I think that the defense is doing a good enough job that I just can't see the Panthers' offense getting any motion.
Can you believe this Falcons team is 3-6 on the year? It doesn't feel real.
It just shows, and I think it just shows how they just haven't done anything exciting. Really, they've been a solid defense that's slowed down offenses, but on the offensive side of the ball, Penix's numbers 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It's not like he's turning over the ball like crazy. They're just not really advancing down the field. They're doing everything through Bijan. And I think they've finally started to work out that Drake London is a stud receiver and they can just throw him the ball.
About time.
So hopefully we'll see that continue this week. Yeah, about time indeed. But I think this is poor. This is a poor season for the Falcons, and something's got to change because the pieces they have, they should not be 3-6.
I think if they're going to save anything, they have to win this week, so I'll take the Falcons as well. Bills versus the Bucks. I'm taking the Bills in New York. Sam, who are you taking here?
It's a good game, this, isn't it? You know what? I'm going to go on the very basic logic of the Patriots beat the Bills. Oh, the Patriots beat the Bucks as well.
They beat the Bucks as well.
Good. This didn't really work out, did it? Give me the Bucks. I know it doesn't matter. Give me the Bucks.
I think this game is really important for the Bucks as well. Like we mentioned, the Falcons and the Panthers need wins to really put pressure on the Bucks. And if the Bucks fall to 6-4, you could see something slipping up for them. So desperate for a win there. Yeah. Texans Titans, Sam. I'm taking the Texans. I'm sure you am as well.
Yeah, Houston got to win this one.
Bears Vikings, big game in Minneapolis. Who are you taking, Sam?
Part of me really wants to pick the Bears here. I can't lie. I think I'll go with the Vikings. That defense is strong. I think 9 will bounce back. But yeah, we'll see how Caleb Williams does against a tough Minnesota defense.
I can't get behind a man calling himself 9. I just can't.
Yeah,
I can't. So I
feel like I'm doing it out of mockery at this point.
Yeah, true. Packers Giants. I kind of want to, like in English football where they have the new manager bounce. Do you think the Giants will have that now that Daboll's gone and just beat this struggling Packers team?
It's funny that you say that because this is such a trap game for the Packers.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like you said, just fired the head coach in New York.
It could be Russell Wilson as well.
An upset here, but it's surely not. It could be Russell Wilson. That's true. Which, in that case, I will pick the Packers. We'll go. I think the Packers. They got to see this one out. If they can't beat the Giants, if they're losing 3 straight, I've got no hope for them going towards the playoffs.
If it's a primetime game, I might be, inclined to pick the Giants, but I will go Packers as well. Steelers versus the Bengals. I'm taking the Steelers to win this one. Sam, who are you taking?
I'm going to take the Bengals off the bye week. I think let's see. It's a big game for the Steelers to bounce back offensively.
You just want the Ravens to win the AFC North. That's why. Come on.
No. Well, to be honest, this game doesn't really help us either way because we're going to be.
I think you'll still be one. You'll be one game out. Even if you're tied with the Steelers, I can't quite remember, but hey ho, you'll eventually beat them. Jags, Chargers. I'm taking the Chargers here.
Yeah, I'll go Chargers as well. This is a big game. This is big playoff implications on this one.
Well, Rams, Seahawks. If we're talking about playoff implications, this is the big one.
Yeah,
division title on the line. Really,
this is game of the week.
It's in so far. I'm going Seattle. I don't care. I'm taking Seattle. They'll make this a home game.
Well, you say division title on the line, but obviously this is, we'll get the rematch in Seattle later this season, so they could easily split the season series. I think this one goes to the Rams. But I can't wait to watch this Rams offense versus the Seahawks defense. It's going to be a great watch.
Saying that, both of our teams play at the same time, Sam, and I honestly might watch the Seahawks Rams over our own team. So that'll be it's a tough game to miss.
I was going to say, seeing Ravens Browns, I think I might have to put on Seahawks Rams as well. I can't lie.
Niners Cardinals, Sam. So
get out the Rams jersey.
Get out the Rams jersey. I assume we're both taking the Niners here.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
Niners here. Ravens to beat the Browns, I assume, is both the same for us.
I hope so, Miles.
I hope so.
I'm not dealing with a loss in Cleveland like we had to do last year.
Yeah, God. True. Gosh, that'd be agonising again. And Chiefs Broncos, Sam, in Denver. Who are you taking?
Huge game. Can't wait for this one. I'm going to go with Kansas City coming into Denver, though. I think that, like I said, the Broncos' offense is worrying me. And the Chiefs' defense is flying, and they have the benefit of the bye week the week before. So, yeah, we'll go with Kansas City. But I assume you will stay home and you got to back your team.
We're coming off a mini bye. We're 5-0 at home. Ooh. I'm still not picking against us. Give me the Denver Broncos. So come on.
Yeah,
Lions, Eagles, Sunday Night Football. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to win this one.
As will I. I'm excited to see what Dan Campbell can cook up against this Philadelphia defense. It's a lot easier to run an offense against Washington than it is Philadelphia. So we'll see how he can manage this one.
And then finally, Cowboys versus the Raiders. Sam, who are you taking here?
Got to be the Cowboys. Again, off the bye week, and that offense is just awesome.
Finally, random touchdown scorer. Sam, you need one this season. I'll let you go obvious if you need one. So come on. Just pick. Right, no offensive lineman this week, Sam.
Can I pick Jahmyr Gibbs? I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs isn't even a great shout with the Eagles.
No, against the Eagles, probably not.
You know what? You've just told me to go obvious, but I don't want to, Miles. I want to go Charlie Kolar of the Baltimore Ravens. We're using our tight ends a lot as of recent. You can't look at me like that. It's supposed to be the random touchdown scorer, and no, you don't like it. You don't like it.
I don't like it, Sam. But you know what? You run with it, mate. Honestly, I think you're honestly going to get 0 this season. It'll be quite impressive.
To be fair, I feel like as the season's progressed, instead of going more obvious to save myself not getting it right, I'm getting more random as if it's like, just so I get more excited about actually getting it right.
Oh dear, we're getting further and further away. I am going to go for. Let me go to Spain and watch the touchdown. I think that Jeremy McNichols will score for the Washington Commanders. Chris Rodriguez likely to be out for this game, so he'll be RB2, and I think he'll get in the end zone. We have had an episode riddled with technical difficulties, so hopefully it's turned out okay for you lot listening. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials, FDT_podcast, and we'll see you all next time.